Hey guys, it's Caleb, and welcome back to the Pink Side. And today I'm going to talk about the concept of guaranteed spankings within the domestic discipline dynamic. And I'm going to start off right by telling you guys that I am really not generally a big fan of the idea of a guaranteed spanking for a particular infraction. Now, I make a couple of exceptions for this. For example, let's say you have a rule that your woman should not text and drive, right? If you want to have a rule where that's a guaranteed spanking every time, I understand that because that's something that could cause crashes and cause people to lose their lives and stuff like this. So there's little exceptions like that I will kind of make exceptions for. But as a whole, I don't really get down with the concept of guaranteed spankings for a particular infraction. And if you're going to have them, you should have them for stuff like I just talked about. Stuff like a woman losing her cool in an argument, or something like that. That should not be a guaranteed spanking. All right, that should be one of those things where she's given a few warnings. She's given a few chances before you get to a sort of spanking element. And you also need to consider what the situation is. Is she just moody, or has she gone through some kind of tragedy recently? You've got to consider all these things. You know what I'm saying? The majority of the domestic discipline community now preaches guaranteed spanking. A lot of times they put this behind the 4 Ds: disobedience, disrespect, danger, and I forget what the other one is. Dishonesty. And what happens is a woman gets spanked every time. One of two things usually happens there. A woman gets spanked every time she fails in one of those areas, which ends up creating a quasi-abusive relationship, a situation where a woman is afraid to be herself around her guy. Or, and this is what usually happens, both the man and the woman give up on the concept of domestic discipline. They find it to be too much work. They find it to be too exhausting. Because a lot of the men, that I've talked to and I've seen on message boards and stuff, they said, you know what, I've tried this DD thing for a while and it's just too much for me. I don't think I can handle this. So you pry the guy a little further and you find out he spanked her like 15 times in 3 months. Well, hell, I would get burnt out by DD too. You know what I'm saying? If I had to spank my woman 15 different times in 3 months, real disciplinary spankings, I would get tired of it too, and I might even consider giving up on it too. So the question becomes, why has he spanked her 15 times in a 3-month period? Well, it turns out he's not trying to be an abuser. It's just that him and his woman sat down and made up a bunch of rules, and they decided that there's going to be a spanking for all these sort of rule infractions. So every time his woman gets a little out of line, he spanks her, not because he's trying to abuse her, but because he found domestic discipline online or through a friend or whatever, and he thinks that's what he's supposed to do in each of these situations. So the woman gets tired of being spanked. The man gets tired of spanking her. And they give up on it. And that's a tragedy. So what do you do, in situations like this? If you got a woman that's prone to maybe getting a little too loud in an argument, you give her a few chances before you spank her, okay? You don't just go right for the spanking. You know what I'm saying? Maybe she calls you out of your name or whatever it is. You just let her know, like, hey, you're taking this too far. You know what I'm saying? However you want to say that to her, as long as you don't disrespect her, let her know she's taking it too far, right? If she's still, in her bad attitude a few days later, that's when you can open up the discussion about a spanking or just go right for spanking her, I guess. Because by that point, you've given her enough chances to sort of take it back to the point where you don't necessarily have another option. But, and I said this in my last video, the number one way domestic discipline relationships become abusive is when couples try to spank their way to a perfect relationship, where they try to spank their way to perfect harmony. There is no perfect harmony in relationships in this world. You can have a heck of a lot more harmony than you did before domestic discipline. That much is true. And this is exactly why domestic discipline has saved so many relationships. But you'll never have a perfect woman. You'll never spank all the flaws out of her. You'll never spank all the whatever bad things she's prone to. You'll never completely spank that out of her, right? It's not going to happen. The best you can do is to bring her back to a certain level when she's gone too far off of that level. And that's how you keep the most possible harmony without breaking her spirit. Now, some guys will give spankings for everything, but they're like kind of like little spankings, like 3 or 4 quick swats or whatever. And I've done that here and there. So that's not what I'm talking about. But if you're giving your woman a full disciplinary spanking for sort of every rule she breaks or something like that, you're doing too much. And it's going to burn her out, and it's going to burn you out. You know what I'm saying? Plus, just from a moral perspective, it's not really a great thing. I mean, I know a lot of my listeners are Christians, so I'm just going to put it to you like this. God, when you sin, doesn't automatically throw out punishment. Generally speaking, he throws out quite a few warnings before he starts causing a little bit of trouble in your life and trying to discipline you in that fashion, right? So shouldn't we follow God's example? Instead of going right for the spanking, with our women, shouldn't we exhaust some other alternatives first? Especially when you're in a relationship where you've already established your authority. She knows you're willing to spank her. She knows you're willing to give her a really good spanking. She doesn't need you to keep proving that, right? She already knows that. She just needs you to bring her back down to earth with spanking once in a while. Not daily, not even weekly, once in a while. Domestic discipline is a tool, and the power to spank your woman is a power that can be dangerous because it, like I said in my last video, there's nobody in your house above you to keep you in check. So you have to be constantly checking yourself so that the power doesn't really get to your head. You see what I'm saying? I guess what I'm saying is that I don't want to go as far as to say spanking should be used sparingly, but it should be used cautiously. It should be used with intelligence. You should very rarely should you give a woman a spanking that you haven't fully thought through first. You see what I'm saying? So that's all I got for you guys today. I hope this helps. And I know this is going to be very controversial in the DD community because certain gurus have taken over and they teach what they teach. And if my woman does this or that, it's an automatic spanking, blah, 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 blah. Some of these people are fakes. They're not even real domestic disciplinarians. They're just power seekers. You know what I'm saying? They're people who seek to have power over women or power over people in general, and they feel like the domestic discipline community is their way of achieving that power. And unfortunately, they're having a bad influence on a lot of good people. I think there's a lot of good people within the domestic discipline community. And I think there's a lot of women who would be open to domestic discipline relationships if they didn't see some of the domestic discipline leaders teaching some of the sort of nonsense that they teach. Now, I'm not knocking all the DD leaders out there because there's good ones. But unfortunately, DD has hit the mainstream a little bit. It's kind of become a little bit commercialized, so people with bad intentions have crept in. And it's just something you got to watch out for. All right, guys, that's about it.